Live. You're live.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop. It is time for another Wood by Wright Q&A. Normally I would do this next week. However, next week my father is going to be in the shop. So it'll be the first live with my father, which should be very exciting because he wants to do some carving. Should be very interesting because he is the one who taught me woodworking from a power tool side. So it'll be kind of fun to bring a power tool person into the shop and teach him carving. But I need to silence my phone lest it go ba-ding on us all night. So we're going to have some fun tonight. It is a Q&A. We have a bunch of questions queued up for the A's future. Okay, that didn't come out quite right. But
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah, we've got a few things going on in the shop. So this is where I like to talk about some of the upcoming projects. I'm actually doing a test with different boiled linseed oils that don't have additives or that claim to be additive free or safe. So this should be very interesting to see how some of them compare. So I just finished doing the test drying, and I'm going to take a look at color differences and different surfaces afterwards. And so it'd be kind of fun to actually see, well, first off, are they actually solvent free, or do they say that but aren't, and what all's in them? So that would be kind of fun to play with. So that'll be coming up soon. I've got a Stanley #1 that I'm restoring. It's not, woo, that was close. Don't drop the Stanley #1 on the floor, especially because it's not mine. This one is, so I'm actually doing the restoration on this, and we're going to be doing some Japanning on this. So, ooh, isn't that pretty? So yeah, that video is coming up here soon. I'm working on the tote because the horn on it was missing. Let's see what else we've got going on. I've got a project coming up here for my Secret Santa. I still have to get that done and in the mail. And so for those of you who don't know, on the Hive Mind group on Facebook, we did a big Secret Santa switch up. So I have to make something for someone here. Let's see what other things do we have going on in the shop. I have a crazy amount of projects I'm in the middle of. So we'll be seeing how those coming out. But yeah, we haven't had a chance to do much on Sarah's bench, so that is still on. Someday, so hopefully the day will be coming where she can lessen her time as a nurse and spend more time here working with Wood by Wright. Then we'll have more time to work on the bench. But until that day, it will be a slow project.
Maybe this weekend.
Maybe.
If I just don't crash and burn.
We will see. It is good to have you in the shop, though. At least that is a fantastic thing. So.
Yes, because next week, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So you may actually have my mother here manning the chat when we start next week, which will be very interesting. So tune in next week.
Don't we actually woman the chat?
Yes.
I'll just keep drinking my Diet Coke.
Of course, then you can have, rather than mom jokes, it would be actual mom jokes.
We won't call it grandma jokes. Grammy jokes.
So let's get into some of the questions. Now, the first one is actually a question that I have been asked probably about 36 times in the last couple days about the video that came out on Saturday where I made the mantle. Sorry, loud shoes on the floor. One of these days I'll get them leathered. So I had the mantle. This is the cut-off chunk from it. This is a solid piece of white oak. Think about all the mallet heads I could make out of this. But it was sticking out from the wall, and it's 8 inches by 6 inches. And I put screws in from the top. And I have gotten a crazy amount of questions of why in the world did you put screws in from the top where you can see them rather than putting them in from the bottom where you won't see them. And there are many, many reasons for that. Number one, when I'm working on the mantle is about this high on me. And so it looks like I'm looking down on the mantle. But I'm actually stepped up on the hearth, and the hearth is about 18 inches. So the mantle is actually just a hair below eye level. So the amount of time looking up from underneath is very similar to the amount of time looking down. Also, it will be covered with decorations on top, so you're probably not going to see anything that's on top of it. But the biggest thing is that this mantle weighs around 100 pounds, and it's wanting to roll forward off of the wall. And if I put the screws on the bottom, it's not going to give it any structural strength to keep it in place. It's not going to stop it from rolling forward. If I put the screws in the top, that will stop the whole thing from rolling forward. So it is a structural element to put them in from the top. Now, if this were my mantle, I would probably drill all the way through and put a peg all the way through that would stick out top and bottom and be a structural element that would kind of look like it came from the barn that the beam was pulled out of. But the people who own it are looking at getting another house in the next while. And so because of that, they actually want to take the mantle with them. So just putting a couple screws in it makes it so you can take the screws out and they can move it. But yeah, that's why I put the screws in from the top. So stop asking me. Okay, what's next? Or what it should say, what's first?
Hang on.
Oh, Alan had a super chat.
Yes, that's... How many Sarahs do you have to stack up to be James's height? I say 3. How short do you think I am, Alan Smith?
We all know it's at least 4.
Oh, shut up. I'm 4'10" and James is 6'1". So 1.5.
So 14 inches less. Well, thanks for the super chat, Alan.
All right, hang on. Hang on. We are due from a mom joke. What do you get if you cross a Smurf and a cow?
Star Wars milk? Blue milk?
Blue cheese.
Oh, blue cheese.
Okay, before we go any further in this question Q&A, because everyone has lots of questions, I need y'all to throw like question in front of it or a really cool doohickey thingy, circle, smiley face, something. I'm sure I'm losing questions because y'all are very curious tonight. So
or throw up a super chat.
Or throw up a super chat. Alan, I don't think you had a question. Otherwise, I would have asked it. I'm sure there will be one at some point. So if y'all can help me with that. I think I've gotten everybody's, but I've already got like 10 questions queued up. So if we get like to 8:30 and I haven't asked it, throw it up again, please. I'm not trying to miss questions. So.
Cool. What we got? What's the next question?
Okay, sorry. There was another question I was going to grab. Jose Mejia Perez. What whittling knife should I buy?
Ooh, what whittling knife? Honestly, when it comes to whittling knives, there are so many different styles out there that it is a very, very personal preference. There are, here, let me grab a couple. Oh, shoot, they're all wrapped up. Well, I've got this one to show. This one is out of focus. This is one that I really like. I like the straight cutting edge rather than having a rounded edge, because sometimes you'll see the knife where this tapered off edge would be the sharp edge and the blunt would be on the back here. I like having a straight edge, makes it a little bit easier. If it comes to a point, you can do some chip carving with it, and it's something you can get your fingers on, get your thumb up by it, and be ready to pry at. This is what the shape of blade that I like, but there are so many of them out there. Flex Tool makes some good ones. You can actually get a set of 3 of them on Amazon. Narex has a couple that are really good. Narex has one they call the whittling knife. It's a sloyd knife, but it's personally, I think, a little bit longer than I would really like. It's also with the curved front blade. It's more of a small pocket knife, whittling knife. And there are so many different designs of thickness of steel and shapes of handle that it really becomes a personal preference. So I would say get an inexpensive, cheaper one. One of the flex cuts, you can pick those up for, $15 or so, and play with it. See if you like it. See what you don't like about it. And then you can go off and buy one. I'd like it with a little bit longer blade. I would like one that has this particular shape. It doesn't quite fit my hand this way. What things about do you like? What things about do you don't like? And then you can go to start picking out. But eventually, once you start getting into it, you'll get a dozen of these, and you'll be still looking for 3 or 4 more for that specific use. It's one of those tools that you really can't have enough of. So, yeah. What's next? I didn't turn on the Christmas lights. I was going to have them set up to work with Super Chats, but I think I connected that wrong. So, We'll turn on the Christmas lights. What's the next question? Oh, she's typing. She's talking about being behind my back.
No.
No?
No. So someone asked Alan how he got away with teasing me all the time, and then I said that's because he supplies the hot cocoa fund.
Yes.
And then
and for
poor
those of you who
man
want to
said,
know, she does go and buy hot cocoa with her hot cocoa fund.
or sometimes the strawberry acai, however you say it, from Starbucks. That is my one guilty pleasure every so often, because I don't drink coffee. And then poor man asked, so for money we can joke about your height. Yes, I am that cheap. But then, so my motto is, you gotta, whatever you dish out, you gotta be willing to take back. So
Yes.
I think Alan knows it's a give and take thing.
Two-way street.
It's a very two-way street. I might be short. I got pretty thick skin. Whose kid is powering the lights? There's no elf under there, Brian.
Yes.
I might be short, but I have no elves for children. They're almost as tall as me. Oh gosh, I'm missing questions. Okay, we're getting off
We'll give you
track.
one to answer, and then you can go on to the next
I'm
one.
perfect for the woodworking show. I'm sawed off. A bit late and dollar short. Let's go to the next question because I think I just missed like 20 of them. Duck, what did Duck say? Was watching your old video about restoring the 100-year-old saw. How do you determine if it was a dovetail or a crosscut?
So it was this saw here, and this one is a small back saw, and there are several different things to it. A dovetail saw is a smaller saw. It tends to have a short depth of cut. In other words, from the teeth, the plate, it doesn't cut very deep into the work. It usually has around a foot, maybe 10 inches, maybe 14 inches long. It's a smaller handle. The handle tends to be out of the way at more of an inclined angle. But the biggest thing is the teeth are filed with a rip cut or just a little bit of fleam to them. They're not a cross cut saw. And so once you see all those things, this is a dovetail saw because it fits into that size. They were last cut with a rip cut. And if I were to turn this into a cross cut, then it would probably be considered a small carcass saw. And so it really depends on how the teeth were filed as to what is its function. But then, if I were to take my carcass saw and cut dovetails with it, does that make the carcass saw into a dovetail saw? So it really just depends on what you're used for it. But those are the main characteristics that go into a dovetail saw. So, good question. What's the next one? You guys are keeping her busy though.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we got a
okay.
super chat.
Kenny and Janet. Yes, we have a super chat. We must
Thank you, Kenny.
acknowledge the super chat. And it has a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, it could have been in Janet, so we're not assuming because they both woodwork together, which I think is awesome.
That is very cool. That's the way
All right.
the best couples work.
I guess it is Kenny because it says if a fella. I'm assuming. If a fella wants to experiment with resawing lumber, what should one look for in a rip handsaw, and then specifies brand, type, TPI, etc.?
Brand doesn't matter. You're looking for a longer blade. So 26 inches for general rip sawing is about as short as I would go. When you're first getting started, well, depending upon the thickness of the board. So most of the time when you're resawing, you're talking about something that's like 4 inches or more that you're cutting through. Usually you're going to be cutting through 6 inches, 8 inches, a foot. And that's general resawing. You're going to want large teeth. You want rip cut teeth. And when you're first getting started, you're probably going to want something with a large amount of set. In other words, the teeth are sticking out on either side of the plate a little farther. That's going to give you more control. The more set you have in the blade, the more control you have over guiding it and following the line. However, the more set, the more material you're moving, and then the more work you're doing because you're taking more material out of the cut. So as you get better at it, you're probably going to want to take away less and less set in the saw. But generally, my hand saw that I'll do most of my resawing with is a 26 inch. This one's a 5 PPI. 5.4, that's about the size you generally want for a good handsaw for resawing. The next step up is then a frame saw. This one's a 36-inch, 40-inch, 48-inch. The bigger ones do bigger boards. So the longer the saw is, the more you have in your total stroke. So if I have 12 inches of board in this, and I have 24 inches of useful teeth, then I'm going to have 6 inches out, 1 foot of board, 6 inches out. And so I'm going to have a hard time moving that because at any point, half the saw is engaged. Whereas if I use a 36-inch saw, only a third of the saw is engaged. And so it makes it a little bit easier to have a longer saw on longer cuts. But that's not to say you can't do 14 inches with a 26-inch handsaw. It's just going to be more work. So things to think about. Thanks, man. What's the next question?
Let's see. Brigette Anderson-Atkins asked, I just ran my number 5 over a screw and gouged the sole pretty good, covering the length of the sole. Should I try to remove the gouge or let it be?
What I would do is get something soft like pine and take a couple passes on the pine and see if that gouge in your sole is leaving marks in the wood. If it's leaving marks in the wood, then you're going to want to clean it off. Just a piece of 400 grit sandpaper on a flat surface, you'll be able to go through it and take it down. You can, if you're really careful, with a fine file, go over it and take off any nicks that are sticking down from the sole. But honestly, if there's a big scratch in the sole and there's nothing taking gouges out of the wood, just leave it. It's not going to be a problem. I mean, basically, you're creating for yourself a corrugated sole. With one really thin corrugation. So no, don't worry about that. Most of my planes, here, let me just grab a random one. Let's grab my 4.5 here. This one doesn't have any massive gouges, but it's got a lot of scratches. And here, let me see if I don't know if you guys will be able to see this.
Why did you go all black?
I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
Let's try this button. This one, yeah, you're probably not going to see it. There's quite a few crisscrossing scratches. Nothing massive, but the more you use a plane, the more it's going to get scratches on the sole. Not a problem as long as they're not marring up the work. So. Hey, Tyson.
Yes, okay.
Sorry, I can't read.
So do you want to do Tyson's? I owe Kenny a mom joke, too.
Read Tyson's to me, and then you can do both mom jokes.
Okay. So Tyson asked, if you could choose one power tool to go along with your hand tools for the rest of forever, what would it be and why? I chose a bandsaw.
Well, thank you, Tyson. I actually would go with a thickness planer. Why a thickness planer? Because the step that you spend the most time on for the average person working with rough cut lumber is milling it to thickness. Taking off a lot of material takes a lot of time. Now, if you tend to buy S4S lumber, in other words, it's already milled to thickness, it's got a smooth surface, then getting a bandsaw would probably be better because you're going to spend most of your time doing ripping. Nice thing with a bandsaw is you can rip straight cuts, or you can whip wavy cuts. You can do shaping with it. So a bandsaw is a very flexible thing, but a thickness planer saves you more time if you're working with rough cut lumber. And you can also joint with a thickness planer, as long as you have a jointing sled for it. So if you're working with rough cut lumber, thickness planer is the better way to go. If you're working with S4S lumber, bandsaw is the better way to go. So it really depends on where you get your lumber and what condition it's in. I'm trying to think through that. Yeah, and if space is limited, bandsaw is usually the way to go because it's small footprint and you can usually work around it. Whereas a thickness planer, you need infeed and outfeed. It may not take up much space in the shop, but you need infeed and outfield. And then you're also going to need dust collection and a way to get it because it creates a lot of mess. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. I have a power planer that I use quite a bit, that I do a lot of my surfacing. And that is kind of nice because it doesn't take up any more shop space. You use it just like you use a hand plane, it's just faster. So that might be another option to go with. But good question. Lots of different possibilities. So what are the mom jokes?
Okay, mom jokes. What do you get from a pampered cow?
What?
Spoiled milk.
I like it. What's next?
Oh, no, I already asked that one.
She collects these. She's
I
like the
do.
connoisseur of
I
jokes.
do.
She'll
But I
sit
was
in
trying
bed
not
scrolling
to.
through them.
Okay, what do you call birds that stick together?
Flock.
Velcros.
Okay, that's a good one. What's the next question?
What's the next question? Hang on. Okay. Alex, what did Alex ask? Can you highlight how to use a Stanley square? I'm having a hard time with mine as it really wants to tilt when drawing the line. Any tricks to avoid it?
Yes. And this is going to be particular if you're working with wider boards, or in my wife's case, you have a smaller hand. There are different ways of doing that. Let me grab a knife. So what the problem is if it's on here and you're marking across, let me do it this way. If I'm marking across, as my knife is going there, my knife is pushing up against the side of this. So as it comes in, it tends to push the square away, and now I'm off square. And so what you want to do is, rather than grabbing it up here, you want to grab it back here, and you want to hold on to it, and preferably you want your thumb on one side, you want your fingers on the other side, and you want to squeeze this whole thing together, and then the index finger holds this flat down. So what you're doing is you're keeping this fence held against the side. And that way when you're pushing into it, you have something fighting you back. The other thing you want to do is, on your first pass, you want it to be very, very light. The tendency is I want to go in here and I want to jab it down in there and I want to get a nice clean cut on the first line. You don't want to do that. You want a nice light cut with almost no pressure at all. Then you come back through with a medium cut, and then you come in with your heavy cut that actually makes the line. And what that does is your first cut creates a small track that the knife can come in. So every cut after that, the knife isn't pushing as much into the side of this. The knife is just following its own track. Now the problem is, if you have a board that's so wide you can't get your thumb in, what you're going to do is rest your palm on here and grab this in and actually wrap your fingers around it and hold it into place. And think about keeping this locked down. And then you're also going to want to put a little bit less pressure, but again, you're going to want to go light, medium, and then hard. And you're doing all of that, you're making sure you're keeping this against your registered edge. And most of the time I'm going to try and do it on this side. So if I'm doing it on this side, I keep my palm into it and my fingers are kind of holding onto the board here. And then again, my index finger's holding this down. And I'll go light, medium, hard. And all that's another thing is, if you have the registered surface on your side of the board, then wherever the knife starts, it's not going to have as much pressure pushing that into it. So I can get this into here, and now as I get down here towards the end, I'm pushing against this whole mass here, and it's not going to move as easily. So there's a bunch of little tips there. I hope some of them help you out. But yeah, it is very common to move the square over as you're getting close to the end. So that'll go. Square you up. What's the next question?
Let's see. Tommy Roberts, why does Purple Heart have to be so hard to prevent a broken heart?
A good heart is stubborn.
Our love will never fade.
One of the interesting things is a lot of woods that have a lot of character and are often some of the most difficult woods to work. I love white oak. White oak is gorgeous. It has so much character and so many figures to it, and just it has a lot of really cool aspects to it. But it's an incredibly painful wood to work. It's not that it's hard, but it's just got diffuse porous wood. It's just a pain to work through. But it's worth it because in the end it's gorgeous. And yeah, Purple Heart's also like that. Hard, stubborn, twisting grain, splinters out pretty easily, but when you're done, it's gorgeous. So stick at it. Be just as stubborn as your wood. What's next?
It's just more stubborn.
Be just as stubborn as your wife.
I have to be stubborn. Have you worked with you?
Truth. Truth.
Oh. I was already being derided in the chat for how I would butcher the name this week. So I'm just going to go with Dr. Kahn and fill in the rest. Recommendations on specific finishes to protect some of the more colorful exotics.
Oh, yeah, speaking of Purple Heart, it's one of those things that when sunlight gets on it and oxygen gets in the wood, Purple Heart turns brown. Padauk, gorgeous bright red wood, eventually will turn brown. And there's really nothing you can do about that. Aside from sealing it in epoxy and keeping it out of the sun, it's going to turn colors. That's just what it does. And there's really no good way of stopping that. And you'll hear a lot of remedies that might slow it down, and most of those are just sealing the wood so less oxygen gets in and out. But over time, it's going to turn brown. And so it's usually what most people are worried about when choosing a finish to protect those exotic colors. Yeah. There are some interesting ones to that, like Osage green. Osage green is is an interesting wood because it's actually from the root stock of the Osage orange tree. And it is when you first cut it, it's a bright, dark, rich Christmas green. But it mellows into this deep green. It doesn't turn brown, but it's very obviously green. It looks like it's dyed because no other wood out there is green. But it's a very interesting wood, so yeah, there's some fun ones. What's the next question?
Un momento. All right.
And for those of you asking questions now, chances of getting through them all is really
not.
slim. So keep asking and we might get to it, but we always answer super chats. So.
Tom Engel asked, can you place the number 1 next to the handle of a number 7 or number 8?
I don't have, well, the handle is currently being glued up at the moment, so it doesn't fit well. But here, I'll put the number 1 sole against, let's just put it against the number 8 here. So here's the sole, number 8, number 1. Yeah, I am going to be doing a video. This is for a friend that I'm restoring it and bringing it up to full functionality. And I'm going to be doing a video, and it's a video that I've been wanting to make for years. And actually doing a full series of number 1 all the way through number 8 with all of the split offs. And I've seen a bunch of people do, I saw one video that was 1 through 8, but it didn't cover the quarters and halves. And I've done several videos that are 2 through 8 with everything else in there. But I've never done a video with all of them. So I'm really looking forward to getting that done and actually showing off all the differences and shape sizes and measurements between them. But yeah, the number 1 is tiny. It's ludicrously small. It's even too small for Sarah's hand. So yeah. But don't worry, we will be showing some video clips of Sarah trying to use the number 1.
Trying? Do or do not. There is no try.
What's next?
Brian Fulmer, please. Oh, never mind. He just asked if you could get a thing about me using the number 1 before it goes out the door. Look at that timing. Who are we going to? C. Joe, how many power tools do you have?
A lot. Yeah, I've got table saw, planer, jigsaws and drills and circular saws and chop saws, and yeah, I've got a lot of it. I was raised power tool, so I've spent more time doing power tool than I have hand tool, but all of that's up in the garage and doesn't get used in projects. If I use it in a project, it generally gets shown, other than a few things of just not being worth the time to pull it out for one drill or something like that. Yeah, if I use it in a project, it gets shown in the videos. So I have a lot of that for just general use. Like my planer, I just used that today. My father is making a mantle, and he doesn't have a planer, so he had some 9/4 stock he needed milled down, and he had some 4/4 to be taken down to 3/4. And so we brought out the planer and had fun with that. The table saw I used the other day for milling up some aluminum for a friend of mine. He needed some unistrut cut down. So yeah, it gets used from time to time, but rarely in the projects for the video. So it's what I pull out when I'm just doing things to be done. And if it wasn't for having a channel about hand tools, I would be very, very solidly hybrid, because there are so many things that are just time saving to have a power tool and run it through. But because my channel is all about hand tools, if I run it through a power tool, I'm not really showing or describing how things are done. So the reason that I do all hand tools is because I'm teaching all the steps of hand tools. So that's that. But yes, I do have a very large collection of power tools. I don't have a bandsaw, and I don't have a jointer. I used to have a jointer. I sold it. These are the big ones I don't have. Got, 4 or 5 routers. But yeah. If you follow on the Patreon, if you're a member on Patreon or a member here on the channel, I just put out a video and you'll see a couple power tools that are here and there where I'm using them on some other project. What's the next question?
Jim N. Looking at TayTools, debating on getting a new good plane, but unsure. Number 4, 4.5, or 5.
Really a personal preference. If you're planning on doing projects with boards that are like 3 foot or longer, then you're probably going to want to get a 5. If your projects are all under 3 feet, then get a number 4. Usually I say 4 or 5 just because they're a little easier for a beginner to run. The 4.5 is a wider plane and takes more force. And sometimes that more force is skewed in the brain for not sharp. And so there are a lot of people love the 4.5 because it does more with each pass, but it's something you kind of got to get used to. For me, I generally don't use my 4.5 that much. It just doesn't fit into my workflow that well. But again, it's a personal preference. So usually it's between the 4 or the 5. And that just depends on how big a material you're doing. The 4 is better at smoothing, but you can joint with it. The 5 is better at jointing, but you can smooth with it. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. But I hope that helped you out. Next question.
Let's see, Chris Peters. What kind of winding sticks do you use? Oh, those evil things. Any advice on getting the twist out?
The ones I use the most are the ones that I made when I first started hand tools, these ones. And I have a video on making these ones. I also have a video on making, where are my other ones? I don't know. Then I did a live video a few months back where I was going to make a long set, and the live video fell apart because all the materials I was going to use on them weren't in existence. So hopefully I'll be able to redo that live video sometime. But really, winding sticks are just 2 sticks that have the same taper to them. Even if you can do winding sticks with shims. And anytime that the 2 sides of the stick are parallel, then you put them on there and they work. They don't have to be anything special. All the other bibs and bobs and different colored materials on there are there for show or help you out a little bit, but not necessary. You grab 2 2x4s, set them on there as long as they're straight edges and good to go. They'll treat you well. But yeah, it's a good project to do as a beginner because you can make them interesting and you can do extra things to them to make them funky and cool. But as long as they're the same, as long as they're both parallel, then that's all you need. They don't even have to be the same height. As long as the top and bottom edge of them are parallel, then you're good. What's next?
Let's see, Chris Peters. What kind of drill bits fit in the beam drill you restored? I'm looking at restoring one and didn't know what kind of bits fit.
Yeah, they're actually a 1/2 inch shank. Here, I got one down here and grab. They have a 1/2 inch smooth round shank, and some of them will have a set screw spot in them to hold onto it. Ooh. Stepped on a chunk of wood. But they look like this. They're just a smooth shank, and this one has a set screw divot that the set screw can go into. But anything with this 1/2 inch smooth shank. But one of the interesting things I found out is that the wood owl bits, those actually work. And I was able to use a wood owl bit in there because this section here is actually a 1/2 inch shank. So the problem with them is if your brace only has one set screw, it'll come in and it'll cant that to the side. But most of them have 2 set screws, one that comes in from either side. So you can actually have the 2 set screws come in and hold this hex shaft. And then the sleeve that it slides into goes into this 1/2 inch shank. And it actually holds it really well. I was very, very pleased with how I was very pleased with how it actually worked with the wood owl bits. So yeah, you can use those. They're not as long, so you won't be able to go as deep, but they do work. Because the original ones, are incredibly hard to find and very expensive. You can generally find the 1 inch bits, but expect to pay $30, maybe $40 a piece. The odd size ones you might end up paying $100 a piece on. They're very expensive. Actually, I had a guy I came across that was selling them for $120 a piece. So they're hard to find, and if they're good and have a lot of wear left on them, they can go for a pretty penny. Yeah, if you're looking for them, go to handtoolfinder.com. There's a link down in the description below. It's a source for all of the known hand tool places. If you want to buy hand tools, it's listed there. If you find something that's not listed there, let me know and I'll put it on there. So what's next?
Clockman45. How thin does veneer have to be so you don't have to steam it? Steaming veneer, you don't have to steam veneer. It makes it easier to work, and so it makes it easier to flatten in, but as long as you have a good veneer press and your veneer is smooth and what you're applying it to is smooth, then you don't really need to steam anything. So yeah, most of the time when I work with veneer, I like to work with thick stuff. I actually like it to be, a good 1/16 inch or more, because I like working with something that has some mass to it. And often it's stuff that I've cut myself. Though if I do buy veneer, I try to get thicker veneer, but that gets more and more expensive. So thinner veneer is often easier to work with. But no, I've never actually steamed veneer to apply it. So yeah, I guess you can say you can do it with any thickness. You don't have to steam it, but it does make it easier to get it on. Just it's not necessary. Okay, I have a question.
What's that?
Is there a reason why your shirt and puzzle are on the bench?
Oh yeah, we're going to be doing a giveaway.
You didn't say that earlier that I know of.
What's that?
Did you say that earlier?
I did not, but we'll be doing a giveaway at the end, as long as I remember or my wife reminds me.
Oh, we had a question too. What was our question? I remember the question.
Oh, you remember it? Okay, yeah.
Revolves around a certain product. Anyways.
What's the next question? Yeah, and as a reminder, I have a couple puzzles still left in stock, so if you'd like to actually get the Wood by Wright puzzle, as well as shirts.
We still haven't finished it.
The Black Friday sale almost cleaned me out, but I've gotten quite a few of the things back in stock, so yeah. What's next?
Chris Peters, do you ever use a dovetail jig, and do you recommend a particular one for beginners?
I love the Cat's Moses dovetail guide, and these are they're really, really cool because you can set it on the board, and it's got magnets to hold it, and it keeps the saw at its angle, and it's got the straight edge, so you get them with either the 8-to-1 or the 6-to-1. And the thing I like about these is you still have to run the saw. You still have to hold the saw correctly. This will generally fix most mistakes, but this is like training wheels. So this will teach you how to do it. And then once you've done it, once you've gotten that muscle memory and worked with it, you don't need this. And that's what I love about it. Is personally, I really don't like jigs. I don't like guides and things that hold me. I want to do it freehand. I want to just have as few tools as possible. And when you're first starting out, one of these is really nice. It does work pretty well. But I don't use it much. Unless I want to get really accurate cuts, this will guarantee that I get a really nice, clean, accurate cut every time. Repeatability with this is phenomenal. So yeah, generally this is the one I'm going to suggest, the Cat's Moses Dovetail jig. It is so simple, so clean, but yet does everything you need to in one great little product. So yes, I think I have a link to that on my website if you want to see exactly the one. But yeah, if you go to Cat's Moses, his website has it.
You have a super chat.
Let's see. Tom West. Thank you, man.
Did you read it?
I can't. It's too small.
Oh, it says, raises glass. All hail King James, Knight of the White Oak. What would be a good wood besides white oak to build my knight weapon with? We're now building swords.
And for those of you who don't know, there's a whole thing with Knights of the White Oak. Those who have reached the status of being a moderator are a full-blown knight in the court of the White Oak. And we have shirts that you can actually get. Sarah's wearing one with the Knights of the White Oak. So 2 knights with a 2-man saw cutting a white oak. It's kind of cool.
2-person saw.
2-person saw, yes. There's a reason they're both the same height because Sarah's not running it. Wow, if looks could kill.
You needed to end up in the doghouse at some point.
Burnt to a crisp. Sorry, what was your question, Tom?
What wood besides white oak?
Oh, there is no wood better than white oak. Hickory is a really good one. Hickory, I like hickory because you can make hickory look like a really smooth white oak. With a little bit of stain, hickory and white oak look very similar. White oak is going to have more of the medullary rays, but hickory is really good. Hickory is a far more ductile wood. It has a lot more flex and spin to it. So hickory would be a good one. Yeah, but whatever you got. I'd love to see one made out of red gum. That would be a good sword. Lignum vitae, one sword to rule them all. What's his mom joke?
What kind of exercise do lazy people do?
What?
Diddly squats.
Nice. I like it. What's the next question?
You like that one, don't lie.
I did.
Aaron, Adam Chilenski, what did you ask? I'm sure it's been covered before, but I'm new here. James, what is your woodworking background?
I was raised in a woodworking shop. My father always had a shop from the time I was like 5 years old on. Either he had a friend who had a shop he could use, or he had a shop in the house. And I built my first project when I was 5 or 6, and I've followed him along. Now, he was all power tools, and he is still all power tools.
Sorry, our children.
But I grew up in his shop, and when we got married, I had my own shop, and I got a full set of tools: table saw, bandsaw, lathe, drill press, and I had a full-blown shop making furniture. And every time we moved, we sold off more material because we went into a smaller house and less space for a shop, and I kept selling off tools because they were hard to move and there wasn't as much space for it. And we moved into our last house, and I basically sold all my tools because we didn't have any space for it. We had new kids, and I didn't want them around power tools. And I basically threw my hands up and said, I guess I'm done woodworking. But then I come across a couple woodworking videos, and I thought, hand tools wouldn't be too much of a problem, because in this house we moved into, we had a space in the basement that was about 10 foot by 10 foot. I'm a stay-at-home dad, so hand tools don't create any dust. I have no problem doing it in the basement. They're safe for the kids to be around. I don't have a problem with the kids being in the shop while I'm working. They're quiet, so when the kids are napping, I can still be working. It works perfectly in a small space. There were just so many things that came around, and I started into hand tools. And it was really fun to learn all woodworking all over again, because you have to do things differently with hand tools. And so it was fun to learn those skills, and that sent me down the road of wood by Wright. So here we are today.
I'm just trying to broadcast, but it didn't like. I was trying to make it broadcast up there and not out
if you
here.
guys hear the kids, I don't know if you'll be able to, but we're having fun upstairs.
Anyways.
What's the next question?
Oh, we are definitely not getting through all these questions, folks. James Crandall. Rockler has a router plane for $99. Have you ever used it?
No, I have not. In all honesty, there isn't too much that can go wrong with a router plane. Excuse me. As long as the blade is held stiff enough to the base, they work really well. There's a cheap one on Amazon with the blade at an angle, and it's dirt cheap. It looks cheap. It looks like it's just screwed together, but it actually works really well. I've had a chance to use it a couple times, and for the price, you can't beat it. So yeah, I mean, you grab a board, you drill a hole through it at an angle, and you put a chisel into it, and you've got a router. Paul Sellers has a great video on making the poor man's router. You can make one of those in moments and have a router up and running, and it works relatively well. So it's not something that the more expensive routers just have more bells and whistles. They're faster to adjust. They're easier to keep in place. They're easier to slowly, incrementally lower it down. There's lots of little things that just make them a little bit better. But you're going to be spending more, so you expect to get that. So yeah, I haven't used that particular one, but there aren't many routers out there that are bad routers. So don't worry about that too much. What's next?
Old Timey Tools. Thoughts on those fancy pattersmaker / Emmert vises?
Ooh, oh yeah, sexy vises.
I'm not sure how I feel about that statement, James Loyal.
I have many, many vices, but my vices don't go that far. I don't actually have a pattern maker's vise. I would love to one of these days. Someday I will get one and put it on a bench, but I have not done that. They are a lot of fun to work with. I've had a chance to work with a couple of them, and they do all sorts of crazy things, and there's nothing that they can't hold. They're phenomenal. I mean, a pattern maker is a person who makes patterns that then get cast, and so they make all sorts of weird natural shapes. And a pattern maker's vise is designed to hold any particular natural shape you might have. Okay, if you guys have a Google Home, please turn down the sound here because I'm about to broadcast. Okay, Google, broadcast kids upstairs. You must be quiet. You are being very, very loud. Stop annoying me. Thank you. This ought to be interesting.
I would just laugh if anyone else has kids upstairs right now.
What's the next question?
Pacific Coast Piper. What is your favorite kind of axe? Mine is a goosewing.
My favorite kind of axe is the one that needs to be ground. I don't have a favorite axe. I'm not proficient with axes and hatchets. It is not my strong suit by any stretch of the imagination. So every time I get the chance to play with something new, I try it. I haven't really done enough to be able to pick a particular style that I like. And different axes and hatchets are needed for different situations. So everyone's a little different. Well, can you read a question for me before you go?
Well, I'm assuming favorite hatchet matches favorite axe, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. Colton, what's the difference between boiled linseed oil and double boiled linseed oil?
This is one I'm looking forward to getting into. Double boiled linseed oil is linseed oil that has been boiled again. It is a bit thicker. It's a bit more viscous. And so it doesn't penetrate quite as well, but it does polymerize very quickly. There's a company on Amazon that calls it's Pexel, or it's a P something. I don't remember what. It's one that I'm going to be testing. It's I think number 4 or 5 on this one. Honestly, the drying time difference on it is not. So it's kind of gimmicky, personally. Wow, it got really quiet upstairs. Put the fear of mom into it. I like that. So double boiled linseed oil just means it's been boiled again. Usually double boiled is also an indication that it doesn't have polymerizing agents or metal chemicals in there to make it cure faster, but not always. So it is a random term that can be used many different ways, but it basically means that it has been boiled again. A little bit thicker is the main difference. But I will be talking about that more, hopefully on Thursday. That video will be coming out. We'll see. What's next?
I'm trying to get caught up. Hang on, sorry. Dennis Meko, planing oak timber for benchtop. It rocks end to end about 5/8 inch when a corner is up. How do I flatten it and stop the rocking?
Put some shims underneath it. Like if you're ever working on a board on your bench, and if it's twisted, then it's going to touch at opposite corners. And so if you put weight on one side or the other, the whole thing rocks. And so what you can do is put shims underneath the corners that are up, and then it makes it much easier to work on. Same thing if you ever put it through a thickness planer. If you have a sled that you can put it on, so you have another board that is flat, you put it on that and you shim up any of the high spots, so when it goes through, it hits it all perfectly flat. And so, yeah, that's usually what I'm gonna do is just put a few shims underneath one point or another and work it down to flat. And then you can flip it over and you got a flat spot that sits nicely on the bench. And so, yeah, shims is the way to go. At least I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
If not, I'm sorry.
If we don't get to your question, send James either an email or a message on Wood by Wright Hive Mind. Those are the two best ways.
I try and answer all questions that come to me from any forum.
Trust me. The kapings, he answers all your questions. I promise. Promise. So, if we don't get it here, just send him a message. Let's see. Perez Hernandez. How do you adjust the set on a saw?
Carefully. The most common thing is if you're cutting down and the saw is always turning in the same direction, then the direction it's turning. So if it's turning this way, that means the set on this side is heavier. The teeth are sticking out more this way. So they're taking off more material here, causing the saw to turn. So what you can do is stone the saw. And if you want to see a whole video on this, I have a video called How to Stone a Saw. And you take a stone, one of your sharpening plates. I usually go with my finest one. And if it's turning this way, I'm going to run it down this side of the saw. And I'm just going to have it on the teeth. I'm going to do 1 or 2 passes, test it again. And if it's still turning, do 1 or 2 more passes, test it again, and keep going until I get a nice clean cut. That's how you can take a little bit of set out of one side or the other. If you need to take out set from both sides, then you just stone both sides and take it down. The other way you can do is you can set it flat on a surface with a wood surface and take there it is. I want to take a hammer with a flat face and then go down the teeth. So if it's sitting flat on there, I'm going to just go tap, 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 tap. One side, flip it over, do the same thing down the other side, tap, 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 tap. And what you're probably going to end up doing is taking them back to pretty much flat. And so you're going to have to come back through with a saw set and then set the teeth back to where you want them. But if you're very, very careful with it, you can just take out some of the set. It just takes a lot more skill to do that. So there's a couple different methods, and I hope that helps. Otherwise, if you need to add more set, then use a saw set.
All right, we're at A54. So do you want to do more questions? Do you want to do your giveaway real quick?
Let's do one more question, and we'll do the giveaway and do a couple questions while we're putting them in there.
Okay. I think you kind of answered this question, but I'm not sure. John Day asked, with hickory being such a hard wood, why not use it on projects or furniture? Pros and cons to hickory.
Hickory is one that it doesn't have a whole lot of benefit for the work it requires. In other words, it doesn't look great, in my opinion. It's a very blah wood, a lot like maple. Maple has no character to it. So it just doesn't please me. It requires a lot of work to use, so why do that? For my trim around the house is all out of hickory. And the reason I did that is hickory was a lot cheaper than the oak. I got a crazy good deal on it. And I was able to stain it to look like the oak that I have around the house. And so I used the hickory to then look like the oak. And that made me happy. But it was a lot of work to do. So, yeah, hickory is, if you like the look of it, then great. As to hardness, yes, it is harder than oak. Not by that much, though. In its functionality and durability for wear and as furniture, it's not going to treat you that much better than oak. Same thing for maple. Maple is even harder, or at least rock maple, but it's really not going to be that much more durable than oak in particular wear for furniture. So if something's going to dent or scratch the oak, it's probably going to dent or scratch hickory or maple as well. And in that case, oak has far more character and is well worth it. So.
Okay, but does that also apply to curly maple? Inquiring minds want to know.
Oh, no, curly maple has got a lot of character to it. And anytime you get figure in maple, then the maple's actually worth something because it's got character in it. But curly maple is difficult. Not as difficult as curly oak. Oh, that's a pain. But curly maple is a very, very difficult wood to work. Not only is it hard, but it also wants to splinter and chip off on you. Yeah.
We just had to reel some people back in. We
Why?
were losing some love because you offended the maple. So we had to clarify.
Spalted maple, curly maple, quilted maple. Yeah, those look good. But just straight plain maple doesn't have any character. And I like something that's got a lot of wild character. That's why I married my wife. So let's do a shirt giveaway. So what we're doing is we're giving away one of these shirts with the Venn diagram with the dad jokes, woodworking, put them all together, you get Wood by Wright. But these are available on my website, so if you want to buy them, you can get them on there. Let's see, what do we do? Oh, we had one. What was it?
It was regarding your paste wax.
Oh, yes. I did a whole nother batch of paste wax this week. So how many pounds of paste wax have I sold? No. How many pounds of paste wax have I made?
Yeah.
Because I have a whole nother batch that hasn't been sold yet. So how many pounds of paste wax have I made?
And I think I know the answer, but you're going to have to help me watch.
Okay. Let me write it down for you. And I rounded the number slightly because I'm not that good. But the first person to put down this number
Oh, nope, I was not going to guess that, so I'm glad you wrote it.
So the first person to put down that number wins a shirt. So while they're doing that, can you read a question?
Sure. Michael Musa. Every how to flatten square a board with hand tools video I've seen uses a huge plane and is done on an almost perfect board. Any tips on S4S'ing a pretzel-shaped 2x4 from Home Depot with a number 4 and number 5?
Okay, if someone doesn't jump in and the big thing is you can flatten any wild board as long as you just hit the high spots. Don't worry about doing the whole thing. The nice thing about using a big jointer is that it's not going to hit the low spots because the two ends of it will rest on the high spots and it'll only hit the high spots. So if you're using a smaller plane, you just need to use a straight edge to then find out where those high spots are. So a straight edge and some winding sticks, you'll be able to identify this is the high spot and this is the high spot, and you plane those two, and then you check it again and you find out where the new high spots are, or those high spots have gotten bigger. So we need to do those areas now. And you just keep going until you get that whole surface perfectly flat. Now I actually have a couple videos on doing that, and one of the difficult things with YouTube is it's very hard to show that a board looks horrible because everything on YouTube looks good, and it's very hard to make things look bad. You actually have to put extra work into it to show problems, and so that doesn't always come across. But yeah, if you're using a smaller plane, you have to use something else to find where those high spots are, and you can do it with that. So is no one getting it?
Someone was really close, but I'm trying to go back through and make sure.
Oh, 3 off.
Yeah, I think that's
okay. It's above 150 and below
far.
200. How many pounds of paste wax have I made?
Okay. 2 people have guessed the same. I'm just trying to make sure because every time someone gets really close and then they throw it in the thing and then I don't know if I miss it. So
oh. Ooh. Oh, so close, so close.
Well,
Okay.
Okay, I think one particular person is super
Yeah, we've got
close.
a couple that were one off.
I can't even keep track. I was trying to find the search thing, but I can't remember how to do it.
Okay.
I mean, I think, oh no, that one came across first.
Pause the guessing if anyone's still guessing. And then it'll take another 30 seconds for it to actually wrap up.
Oh, wait. I think we got one.
You get one?
I think so. Hang on. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh,
but
yes.
where did it just go? Okay, stop guessing
Stop the
people.
questions.
I thought it was Michael.
Can you scroll up to it?
Mike, no, wait.
I thought it had green on it.
I'm trying to find it. Hang on. Oh, yeah, Michael Lines. This is the first one I saw.
Michael Lines.
If I missed it, let me know. But it was 162.
162 pounds.
And Michael is the first one I saw guess it. So if I missed it, oh, nope, Alex. I lied. Alex. Alex was, I just scrolled up and saw it. Sorry, Michael.
I tell you what, Michael and Alex, I will send you both a shirt.
So benevolent.
So here's what you need to do. You need to send me, which Alex? Is it just?
The Afanasyev.
Okay, not the other Alex. If you can send me your address in a message outside of this, I will get you your shirt. So I need your address and I need your shirt size, and we'll get you that shirt. So congrats.
I had that.
So let's ask.
Fish and chief. Okay.
Let's do one more question. I know we're kind of close to time, but that'll
Well,
allow you
hang
to
on.
search one.
Okay. I'm trying to see people's time. Okay, people are still throwing things in. Stop guessing.
Why don't you give me a question and I can do that while you're looking through.
All right. You want me to ask you a question?
Yeah, get one more question and we'll wrap it up. So this will be the last question.
Okay. Hang on. Daniel Camo. After applying boiled linseed oil, how long to wait before applying paste wax? Just a few days, or should you wait till it fully cures?
Oh, yeah, no, only a few minutes. Usually, what I'll do is I put on boiled linseed oil, and if the wood soaks it up quickly, I'm going to put on another coat immediately, usually 5, 10, 15 minutes apart. And I'll just keep putting on boiled linseed oil until it stops soaking it up. I'll let it sit on for 15 minutes or so and wipe it off. And then if I'm really patient, I'll wait about 30 minutes before applying the paste wax. Sometimes I'll just put it on right afterwards because the paste wax and the boiled linseed oil are going to do the exact same thing. They work together really nicely. And then I'm going to let the paste wax sit on there until the paste wax starts to harden up and gets slightly stiff. And then I'll come through and polish off the paste wax and get a nice sheen on there. There really isn't any reason to wait until it polymerizes. And for most boiled linseed oils, it polymerizes in 24 hours. That's usually not anything longer than that. If you're working with a raw, then you might be talking a week or more. But for most boileds, they go pretty quickly. So, yeah, that is that. So I think that will wrap it up. If the two of you who got a shirt can get me your stuff, we'll send it out. Anything I'm missing? Tune in next time because we're going to be having a lot of fun with my father in the shop, a all power tools person learning hand tool carving. This should be interesting.
James Wright, is he the fourth?
He's 6. I'm 7.
Okay.
My son is 8. All different middle names, though. So.
Jeez.
Yes. Until next time.
Whoa, Tyson.
What?
Tyson just threw up a last-minute super chat.
Oh, does he have a question?
He does.
Oh, well, then I will hold for you. So thank you, Tyson.
All right. I just used mahogany for the first time tonight for a project. My question is, why did I wait so long to stop
Mahogany!
using
What's that?
Very rude. How rude. Okay, just use mahogany for the very first time tonight for a project. My question is, why did I wait so long to stop using SYP? What a difference. Or SIP? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, mahogany is a fantastic wood. Generally very straight grained. Well, this is a piece of Peruvian mahogany, a little bit softer, but it's so forgiving. Such a smooth wood and it carves beautifully. It's incredibly fun. It's a very clean wood, but it still has a lot of character. You get closer to it and you start to see sheens and speckles, and it's a very pleasing wood. Yeah, and it comes in all different types from all different countries. So if you're looking for Honduran mahogany, that's actually pretty expensive.
Oh, southern yellow pine.
Oh, yeah, there's southern yellow pine. Pfft,
That's
yeah.
what they're all yelling at me. I had no idea what he was.
Southern yellow pine, yeah, that's it's a good pine, but that's like saying that it's a good Geo Metro in comparison to a Corvette. Yes, mahogany is a lot more fun. A lot more expensive too, but it's a lot more fun. So on that note, we need a mom joke and we'll wrap it up.
You did. Why didn't the vampire attack Taylor Swift?
Why?
Because she had bad blood.
Yes, she did. So thank you for that one. And until next time, have a wonderful day.
Good night.
Bye.
Maybe.